I never thought silence could be so loud. But that morning, the quiet in the house didn't feel like peace. It felt like absence. The kind that crawls under your skin and whispers that something's not right. The beds were made. The toys were gone. Her favorite coffee mug, the one with the chipped handle she refused to throw away, wasn't in the sink like it always was. It was like they vanished. No note. No text, no call, nothing. I stood in the hallway, paralyzed, staring at the place where my daughter usually left her. Shoes in a messy little pile. Gone. Just the indentations in the carpet where they used to be. It hit me in waves, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally, that rising tide of panic that squeezes your chest so tightly you forget how to breathe. I ran through the house like a madman, checked every room twice, called her phone, straight to voicemail. I texted her, "Where are you? Where are the kids?" No read receipt, nothing. I tried convincing myself maybe she took them on a trip, maybe something spontaneous. She used to be like that, before things got hard. But even then, she never did anything without telling me. Never. I opened her closet. Half her clothes were gone. Suitcases missing. A folder of documents, passports, birth certificates, gone too. That's when my heart sank into something darker. Something colder. I remember staring at the family photo hanging in the hallway. The one we took last fall at the pumpkin patch. I traced her smile with my eyes, trying to remember if it was real or forced. And then I realized I didn't know anymore. I hadn't known in a long time. That was the day my world stopped spinning. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table, refreshing her location every 5 minutes. She had one of those family tracker apps on her phone, the kind we installed just in case. I never thought I'd actually use it. For the first 2 days, it showed nothing. Phone off, signal dead. Then, on the 3rd day, something changed. A single ping. Her phone turned on, just for a second. The map refreshed. A dot appeared, and it wasn't in another city. It wasn't at a hotel or an airport. It was at a cemetery. A cemetery. I stared at the screen, frozen. My first thought was denial. It had to be a mistake, a glitch. But the address was clear, and the coordinates were exact. A small cemetery outside town, one I hadn't visited in years, the kind no one drives past unless they have a reason. I remember grabbing my keys with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The air outside was hot and sticky, but I felt cold. Dead cold. Like my skin didn't belong to me. The roads blurred past my window. My vision tunneled. I don't remember much of that drive, only the pounding in my ears and the voice in my head screaming 1,000 things at once. Why a cemetery? Why now? Were they hurt? Was she gone? Had something happened that I didn't see coming? Or worse, had she planned this? Every mile closer, the dread grew heavier. I thought I was prepared. I thought nothing could be worse than the not knowing. I was wrong, because what I found there wasn't just unexpected. It was something no father, no husband should ever have to see, and it changed everything. The cemetery was older than I remembered. Cracked stone markers leaned like tired men, and wild grass curled around weathered names I couldn't read anymore. There was a stillness there that didn't feel peaceful. It felt staged, like the world was holding its breath. I parked just outside the rusted gates. Her location. Hadn't moved. It hovered near the back edge of the grounds, where the trees grew thicker and the sun barely reached. My feet moved on their own, one step after the other, heart thudding in my throat like a warning drum I didn't want to hear. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe her car, maybe her sitting there with the kids, maybe some kind of misunderstanding I could explain away with logic. Something that would let me exhale. But there was no car, no voices, no laughter. Just the sound of cicadas buzzing in the heat and my own breath. Shallow and sharp. I followed the map to the far corner, down a cracked path that curved between crooked stones and moss-covered names. Then I saw it, a small bouquet of fresh flowers resting on a grave, white lily, her favorite dot, and beside them, her phone dot just sitting there, deliberately placed. Face up, screen off. My stomach twisted. I looked around. No one, no sound but the whisper of wind through the trees. I reached for the phone, hands trembling. It was unlocked, no password. Like she wanted me to find it. And inside, messages, dozens. None from me. They weren't to anyone I recognized. No names, just numbers. One thread in particular stood out, long frantic messages filled with phrases like, "They don't know yet. He's getting close. You promised I wouldn't have to do this alone." Then, a photo. I almost dropped the phone. It was of my kids. Taken sometime recently, I could tell by their clothes. My daughter had a new dress I'd never seen before. My son was holding a stuffed animal we'd donated months ago. They were in a room I didn't recognize. Clean, sterile, almost like a waiting room. But not in a hospital. It felt off. I zoomed in. Tried to find clues in the background. A sign, a paper, anything. But my mind kept circling back to the bigger question. Why a cemetery? Why here? That's when I noticed the headstone behind the flowers, the one her phone was resting against. I hadn't looked at it before. I bent down and wiped the dirt away with the edge of my shirt, and I froze. It was her name. Jessica Morgan. Born 1987, died 22/1. My wife, the same woman who had just messaged someone days ago, who'd taken our children, who had vanished from my house, was already dead. I stumbled backward like the ground had buckled beneath me. This couldn't be. It didn't make sense. She wasn't dead. I'd touched her just days ago, kissed her forehead, argued with her about laundry, felt her presence in the house like oxygen. So why? Why was her name carved in stone? That's when it hit me. Not like a realization. Like a punch. This wasn't real. It was planted. The flowers, the phone, the headstone. Someone wanted me to find it. To believe something. To feel something. But what? And then, deeper still, beneath the confusion, beneath the shock, another feeling crept in, a memory. Weeks ago, I'd noticed something odd. Small things, her car keys in the fridge. A strange hesitation when I asked about the school drop-off. A moment when she called our son by the wrong name, her own son. She laughed it off. I let it go. Now I wasn't sure anymore. Had the woman sleeping next to me even been Jessica? If not her, then who? My hands tightened around the phone. Somewhere out there, my kids were alive. Somewhere, there was a truth hiding in plain sight. And whoever left this grave, this message, wanted to control what I believed. I wasn't going to break. I was going to find them, and I was going to uncover what the hell was really going on. The world didn't feel real after that. I remember walking back to my car with the phone clenched in my fist, the sun high and angry above me. But I felt cold, numb, like I'd stepped out of reality and into some twisted play where the actors wore the faces of people I loved, but none of it was true. On the drive home, I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, not looking for cars, looking for eyes. I couldn't explain it, but I felt watched. Like whatever I had just uncovered wasn't meant for me. Or maybe it was meant for me, but not for understanding, just for confusion. For pain. Back at the house, everything looked the same. The couch still had the indent where she sat reading bedtime stories. My son's cereal bowl from 2 mornings ago was still in the sink. I almost laughed at the absurdity. A grave with her name on it. And a half-eaten bowl of Cheerios in my kitchen. The questions came like knives. Who was she? Where were my children? What game was I part of? And why was I the only one not in on the rules? I opened her laptop. She'd left it behind, almost like a taunt. The background was a photo of us, the 4 of us, smiling at the beach, arms wrapped around each other. I couldn't look at it. I minimized the window and started digging. No emails to family, no chats with friends, no Google searches about trips or plans, but in the downloads folder, there was a file. Encrypted, password protected. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, the kids' names, nothing. Then I tried something from the cemetery, 2021, the year on the headstone. It worked. The file opened to a single document, a list of names, dates, locations, all out of state. Some with notes beside them. Uncooperative, moved again, non-custodial, and one in bold. Temporary placement confirmed. I didn't understand most of it, but one thing was clear. I wasn't the only one. There were others. Other parents, other families. Other disappearances. The pieces didn't form a clear picture yet, but they were forming something. Something bigger than I had imagined. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at our wedding photo. I remembered the way she cried when we exchanged vows, real tears, honest ones. I didn't doubt that version of her, but when did she change? Or was she always this hidden version? I thought back to the subtle things. The calls she would take in the bathroom with the water running. The time she told me the daycare had lost our son's jacket, only for me to find it weeks later in the back of her car, zipped inside a bag that smelled like antiseptic and plastic. I remembered the way she flinched when I mentioned visiting her sister. The odd panic in her eyes. I hadn't seen it then, but I saw it now. There was something she was hiding, not from me, but about herself. And then, one last memory came rushing back like a cold wave in the dark. 3 months ago, my daughter had drawn a picture, crayons, stick figures. The 4 of us standing in front of a house. But there was another figure too. In the corner, black, scribbled, eyes with no face. I'd asked her who it was. She'd looked at me, wide-eyed, and whispered, "That's the lady who visits mommy when you're asleep." At the time, I thought she was playing. Children make things up. That's what they do. But now, I wasn't so sure. That night, I barely slept. I stayed up reading every message, rewatching every home video for signs I might have missed. And by sunrise, I had a theory. One I hated, but one that made more sense than denial. The woman I had lived with for the past few months wasn't my wife, not completely. And if that was true, if someone else had been pretending to be Jessica, then what had happened to the real one? And who the hell had my kids? I didn't go to the police. Not yet. It's strange. You grow up thinking that in moments of crisis, that's the first thing you'll do. But when the crisis looks nothing like what it should, when it's not a break-in, not a stranger, not even a clear crime, who do you call? What do you even say? Hi, officer. I think my wife isn't my wife, and someone left a fake gravestone in the woods. No, I needed more. Something concrete. Something that wouldn't get me labeled unstable or grieving. I knew how the world worked. Men lose custody every day for being emotional. I had to be calculated. I made copies of everything. The messages, the grave photo, the document with the names. I uploaded them to a secure drive and stored the originals in a USB taped under my desk drawer. And then, I did what she never expected. I played along. I left the house exactly as it was. Didn't touch the flowers or the photo albums. I even kept sending her texts. "I'm worried. Please come home. The kids miss you." To maintain the illusion that I hadn't figured it out. But privately, I started retracing her steps. First, the school. The front desk lady, Marla, was used to seeing me. She greeted me with a smile that died the moment I asked a simple question. "Who picked up Emma and Caleb last week?" Her eyes shifted. She hesitated. Then quietly, "Same woman as always, your wife." I nodded. "You mean Jessica?" She paused again, too long, then nodded. "Yes, Jessica." But the doubt had already cracked through. I pressed. "Did she ever bring ID?" "No, she said, voice thinner. But she looked like your wife. Sounded like her. Looked like. Sounded like. That wasn't the same as was. I asked to see the security footage. She declined. District policy. I could file a request. It'd take weeks. So I tried the next place, the pediatrician. A private clinic on Pine Avenue. Dr. Reynolds had been seeing our kids for years. He remembered faces, names, habits. Looked puzzled when I asked about the last checkup. Wasn't that just last month? He asked. I nodded. Did you see them? He frowned, typed something into his computer, then said, Actually, no. The appointment was canceled. No one's been in for over 2 months. That's when it clicked. She, whoever she was, had been withdrawing from the world. Quietly, systematically. No school records after April. No doctor visits. No playdates. No library checkouts. Birthday RSVPs. Nothing. She hadn't just disappeared. She'd erased them. I went back to the cemetery that night, flashlight in hand, this time. I examined every grave near the fake one, and I found a dot just behind a large stone angel. There was a patch of fresh dirt, still damp even in the summer heat. No marker. No name, but something was buried there. I dug with my hands, heart pounding, breath short. A boxed-out wooden, old, padlocked. I pried it open with a tire iron I'd brought in the trunk. Inside, photos, dozens of them. All printed, all recent, of me, of my kids, of our home, taken from a distance. Some were of us in the backyard, others through the kitchen window. One, taken from the passenger seat of my own car, showed me asleep at a red light. She had been watching me. Not just recently, for months. Under the stack of photos was something worse. A birth certificate. Jessica Morgan. But the last name wasn't mine. And the date of birth didn't match hers. Someone had created Jessica. Or at least, they had created the version I thought I knew. I sat in the dirt, trembling, as the wind rustled the leaves above me. Somewhere nearby, a barn owl screeched, sharp and sudden, and I nearly dropped the box. That's when the phone buzzed. Not mine. Hers. The one I'd taken from the grave site. It lit up with a message from a number labeled only D. Has he found it yet? I stared at the screen, heart frozen. I didn't reply, but I knew what came next. I had to find out who D was, and whether this entire thing, the vanishing, the fake wife, the gravesite, was just the surface of something far more terrifying. I didn't sleep that night. The message from D kept glowing in my mind like an ember I couldn't stamp out. Has he found it yet? Whoever they were, they weren't just watching. They were orchestrating, and I was playing catch-up. By sunrise, I had a plan. I burned the photos. I copied the phone contents to a fresh drive and tossed the device off an overpass into a river near the edge of town. If they were tracking it, they'd see it drift away. Like I was giving up, I wasn't. I started tracing the phone numbers from her messages, cross-checking area codes, doing reverse lookups, everything I could manage without alerting anyone. Most led nowhere. Burner numbers. No names, no addresses, but one stood out, a real number. Linked to a registered therapist in Northern Virginia. Dr. Lavra Denning. Licensed. Accredited, clean record. Specialization, trauma, family systems, and what stopped me cold, identity reconstruction therapy. I called her office under a fake name. Said I was looking for support for my wife, who had experienced a recent identity crisis. Asked if she'd worked with anyone who had a history of sudden behavioral shifts. Her answer chilled me. I'm sorry. I can't confirm or deny any clients, but I will say, identity shifts are often not a breakdown. They're a plan. A survival strategy. A plan. After I hung up, I found a forum, private, obscure, buried beneath dozens of redirect pages. It was titled Second Selves, a community for people who, for one reason or another, chose to start over, with new names, faces, histories. One of the moderators had a username, That matched a handle from one of the texts on the phone. At Dakota Rebuild D. Clicked through their posts. Each one was clinical, cold, instructive. How to forge social footprints. How to fake medical records. How to parent as a different version of yourself without leaving digital traces. And then, in one thread, dated just 2 weeks before my family disappeared, a user had asked, "How do I leave with the kids without triggering legal alerts?" And Dakota Rebuild replied, "Timing, mirrors, and silence. Disappear from routines first, then disappear for real." My skin turned to ice. She'd been following instructions step by step, and not alone. There was an entire network of people teaching others how to vanish, especially with children, and to build new lives under carefully crafted identities. But that meant one thing. This wasn't just my story. There were others, dozens, maybe hundreds of families torn apart, and no one seeing the pattern. I contacted 3 names from the document I'd found on her laptop. One had a disconnected number. One hung up as soon as I introduced myself, but the third answered. Her name was Claire. Her voice was tight, guarded. But when I said Jessica's name, there was silence. Then she whispered, "You too?" Her husband had left with their daughter 2 years ago. She'd traced him across 4 states. Each time, he was a new man, new job, new haircut, even a different accent. He'd joined a private group that promised freedom from broken systems. She'd found the group once, tried to expose them. Her car was torched 2 days later. She stopped, hid, survived. And now she barely left her house. What do they want? I asked her. Claire exhaled. Control, rebirth, and to make sure no one goes back to who they were. Before we hung up, she said something I haven't forgotten. If you get too close, they won't just erase your family. They'll erase you. That night, I sat in the dark again, gripping the USB drive with every file, every clue, every name, and I made a decision. If they wanted to erase me, they'd have to try hard, because I wasn't going to stop, and I wasn't going to be quiet. I started writing everything down, every memory, every message, every pattern. I started planning how to get inside the group, not just to find my kids, but to find out who was behind it all. And why. Jessica, or the woman I thought was Jessica, had played her part so well. The deeper I went, the more invisible I had to become. No credit cards, no emails from my usual accounts. I moved into a cheap extended stay motel under a fake name and paid cash. Every piece of information I used to track the group had to be scrubbed clean of any traceable detail. But they were good. Every lid led to another dead end. The people behind it, this group, operated like shadows. They didn't advertise, they whispered. They didn't recruit. They recognized. But I had one advantage. I'd lived with one of them. I started posing as a single father on parenting forums, vulnerable, burned by the court system, full of pain and confusion. That's what they looked for. People desperate enough to believe they needed to be someone else just to survive. After weeks of silence, I got a message from a user named Stella's Choice. "You sound like someone who's been failed by the system. We help people rebuild. If you're serious, reply, I'm ready to forget who I was." I did that the next day. A private email arrived with a short set of instructions, a date, a location, and a warning: do not bring devices, come clean, or don't come at all. It was a burned-out church outside Richmond. I arrived just before dusk. Inside, candles flickered on what used to be an altar. A woman stood at the front, mid-40s, calm, almost maternal. Like someone you'd trust to watch your kids for a weekend. She asked no names, just said, "Why are you here?" I hesitated, then lied. "Because I lost my wife, and the courts are taking my daughter. I want out." She watched me carefully, eyes sharp. "Out of what, exactly?" I answered with the truth, the life that broke us. She nodded slowly. "You're not the first." And then she said something that turned my blood to glass. Jessica was a success story, but she let emotion interfere. Attachment makes people sloppy. That's why we relocated her and the children. Relocated like furniture, like freight. I kept my voice steady. Where is she now? She's no longer part of the program, the woman said simply. She reverted, emotional regression, guilt mostly. It happens, she became a risk. I leaned in. And the kids? She looked at me, and for a moment, something flickered behind her smile. Not malice, control. They're safe, she said. And they don't ask about you. It felt like a bullet in the heart. I nearly broke right there. But I couldn't. Instead, I asked, "Can I see them?" She studied me. "Only if you prove you're ready to start over. No names. Number. Past. Only what we give you." It was bait. I nodded like I believed her. Then I excused myself to the bathroom. And I ran. I didn't stop running until I hit the tree line. I'd left a GPS beacon in my sock, a tracking signal I gave to Claire. She was waiting 3 miles. Down the road with her car idling. We drove through the night in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just clenched the USB in my pocket and stared out the window at the blackness. The next morning, I emailed everything, the names, the documents, the conversation, to a journalist Claire trusted. An investigative reporter who'd been chasing the group for years, but never had enough to go public. She does now. And 2 days later, an article went live. The Family Erasers, Inside America's Underground Identity Rebirth Movement. Names were redacted, faces blurred. But the message was clear. The silence was broken. The fallout was immediate. Agencies opened investigations. Forums were shut down. Anonymous tips poured in. And then, just as quickly, everything went quiet. The woman from the church disappeared. The burner numbers went dead. The group vanished. Again. But they'd made one mistake. They let me live, and now I wait. I search. Every week, I follow new whispers, new sightings, new families reporting something. Off. I haven't found my children yet. But I will, because someone once told me. They don't ask about me. And that's how I know they're being lied to. Because my daughter used to say goodnight only after whispering. "See you tomorrow, Daddy." She never missed a night. And she's still waiting. Somewhere. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Click the video on the screen, and I'll see you there.